Hi, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Kipe and I'm with Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar focuses on Impact Silver Corp, a small silver producer focused on its operations in Mexico. And it gives me pleasure to introduce Fred Davidson, who is the president and CEO, and George Gorzinski, who is the VP of Exploration, who will be providing you an update on the company's activities and, most importantly, their efforts on upping their exploration game on their project. So, Fred, I'm going to provide a few disclosures, and then we're going to go directly to you to provide that update.
Super.
I'm sure you all are aware that Impact Silver Corp on page 2 of its presentation has disclosures that are relevant to the company and forward-looking statements. And I encourage you to go to the company's website with regard to those disclosures as necessary. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Please see our recent research on a variety of companies on our website. And so now I will turn it over to Fred, who is President and CEO of Impact Silver Corp, to provide an update on the company. Thank you very much, Fred.
Thank you. Impact Silver has been a producer for over 13 years in Mexico City. Mexico. What makes Impact somewhat unique is that when we talk silver, we're not talking equivalents. We are a pure silver player with over 90% of our revenue occurring as a result of silver. The highlights for Impact for the average person. We have 100% of our title to the properties, and those properties exceed 200 square kilometers in south central Mexico. This is our 14th year of production and 15th year of being on the property. We've produced to date over 10 million ounces, and going forward, we see a significant potential to increase production in both immediately and through our exploration program for the future. We have a superior team, both on the management side in Mexico and in Canada, with lots of experience in finding and developing mines. And the company has over $6 million in cash and no debt. Where's our focus going to be for the next few years? Well, one is we're going to take what we call our Guadalupe production center and increase throughput. And part of that increase will be for recent discoveries like the Negra property, an open pit, which, for example, ran over 200 grams a ton over 22 meters in the last report that we disclosed. Or, as I've mentioned, we're looking at taking increased production at what we call the Kapire site. And the Kapire plant, a 200 ton a day pilot plant, has been set on an open pit, volcanogenic massive sulfide, and is both ready for production and can be expanded both on a metallurgical basis and a resource basis. And then finally, the most recent discoveries as well is, although we've been a silver producer for a number of years, we're now going to exploit part of the mining district that we have that is higher grade golds. And case in point was a recent release, Chapinel, where we had one highlight of 0.8 meters across on a channel sample running 97 grams gold and 97 grams silver. The capital structure of the company is well set up. We have absolutely, as I say, no debt. We've got about 116 million shares outstanding. We respond extremely well to the price of silver, and I have a comparison to that. There is no debt, and we don't believe in a situation that we've got that we should have debt. The spread of the distribution of the shareholding is fairly broad. Retail is a significant portion of it. Trading, it trades exceptionally well. Approximately 2.5 weeks ago, over a 6-7 day period, we traded over 22 million shares, providing the opportunity for a shareholder to acquire a position. You can see how sensitive we are to the price of silver. Where silver moves up incrementally, the stock in the company, because of the leverage to obviously profits, moves up dramatically. And we've just recently started to experience that very same thing again this year. It's been very exciting in the last little while. We see strength in silver, and we see even further strength in fact, our stock. The team that we've got have been, as I mentioned, have spent extensive experience in mining. We have a broad experience from exploration to actual mine operations. We have Bob Leishman, for instance, who provides a balance in terms of, as a fund manager, giving us perspective from the investor's point of view. Over the last few years, we've done something a little different than everybody else. We've actually, when we saw the price of silver fall fairly dramatically, we've actually reduced our production levels and focused more on those mines, and we draw from a number of mines. We reduced the production from a number of the mines to ensure that we maintained high margins at the mine level. And this has been extremely successful for us. And the end result is, after a brief period in about 3 years ago where we ran into a deficit, we've been generating positive cash flows in the last year from the mine because of that approach. Going forward, as silver prices pick up, we're obviously going to start reopening and re-expanding areas of production where we provisionally shut them down. The work that we did, and it can be suggested that we were high grading, is one that has not sacrificed the opportunity to go back in and mine areas that were more marginal at $16, $15 silver. So we haven't sterilized that area. We currently mine from basically in 3 operations, and again, the Benteager Open Pit. And when I talk about that production level, you can see how we got up at a fairly high level and then pulled back to ensure that what we produced in terms of ounces were profitable ounces. This property is a little hard to succinctly describe. It's been in existence as a mining district for over 500 years. That's even before the conquest by the Spanish in 1521. To date, we've located over 5,000 workings on this property. We've located over 42 what the locals call haciendas, or in fact, these are plants or mining operations, some dating back to the date of the conquest. So it's an area that even Cortez liked, and we certainly do too. The Royal Mines of Zacualpan, and yes, we were a royal mine. We were designated that by the king in Spain about 500 years ago. We're located about 3.5 hours south and west of Mexico City on a paved highway. The logistics here are excellent. We take our power off the Mexican power grid. We have a social license to work here in the sense that 99% of the employees are Mexicans, and local Mexicans at that. In fact, we are so local, the church in the town of Zacualpan, which directly adjoins our property, rather than a statue of the Madonna out front, has a statue of a miner. The people understand and appreciate mining. The other thing that we've done, and I think is commendable from our perspective, is that We have grandfathers, fathers, and sons working underground and at the mine site. They see us as part of the community, and that community responds back the same way. On the right-hand side is sort of a generic outline of the property. We don't necessarily control absolutely all of it, but we're not telling people what parts we don't have at the moment. Up in the north part, and I'll just give you the geography and certainly let George take the geology. Up in the northern part, we have the Guadalupe Production Center. It's currently producing at about 435 tons a day. We can up it to over 500 tons a day with minor alterations, take it up over 600 tons a day. And that's certainly our intention in the very near future. Down in the extreme south is the Kapire plant. It's capable of 200 tons a day. And for about $500,000, we foresee putting it back into production. It was set aside temporarily when the price of silver dropped fairly dramatically. We're mining on the up at the Guadalupe site. We're at about 2,000 meters elevation. And as you end up going south and west, there's a very large valley called Villa de Oro. We didn't name it. Obviously, the locals did. The structures that we're looking at here are mainly epithermal veins running northwest, southeast. And as we go south where the Kapire is, that's a volcanogenic massive sulfide. And certainly I don't want to let all this information go because George gives a much better description of it. We've been here for a considerable period of time, and you can see where we have yellow outlines. Those are mines that we're currently supplying the mill with. The mill at Zacualpan is pictured on the top left-hand side. And it's been in existence for a considerable period of time, and we've upgraded it as we go. The one below is the Kapire. It's a 200-ton-a-day plant. We've got a lot of plans for it and its expansion, and we'll detail that in a few minutes. We're currently producing from 3 underground mines and the Veta Negra, and the Veta Negra is an open pit, and probably is currently the only open pit we're operating right now. I should probably add at this point in time, what makes us somewhat unique in Mexico is the district of Zacualpan has no COVID. COVID-19 is obviously a serious issue in Mexico. We were obliged to shut down in early May, April. We established protocols and presented them to the federal government. The government approved them. And since then, since June, we've been operating at full capacity. We only have one incident of COVID-19 that's ever been recorded in the district. That was immediately dealt with, and subsequently, there's been no other issues in the area. Back to the little history that we've got. You can see some of the old workings or haciendas that we've got in the valley. As I said before, there's 42 of them we've located all to date and over 5,000 workings. This is an area of historical consequence and certainly one that's interesting and we've yet to even closely explore. George, why don't you take over the geology here?
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, let's get into some geology of the veins. On the right side here, you can is a cartoon of what our ore chutes look like. They tend to be, well, first of all, top to bottom. The silver zones are about 300 meters tall, and along strike they're 150 to 400 or 500 meters long, but locally they're they can be over 1,000 meters long, and I'll show you some of those. Very silver rich at the top. You know, commonly sections of them running over 1,000 grams per ton silver at the top. The miners are always very happy when the exploration team finds a new vein because they know they're going to be mining very high grade at the top. The bulk of it in the center will typically run 170 to 250 grams per ton. And then as you get toward the bottom of the silver zone, it basically becomes a lead zinc mine with lower silver values. However, below that, in the central part of the district, it then goes into a copper gold zone. And we've done a little bit of test mining on that copper gold, and I'll show you some of that in the presentation. So that's just the cartoon of what these silver zones of ours look like. On the left side are the names of some of the mines, the levels they are within this within this scheme. Just to show you, on the right-hand side is you can see the silver veins are mainly on the right side of this diagram. And the gold copper veins are kind of in the central part of the property. And when you and you can see on the left side of the block diagram there, the reason for that is the whole district is tilted. So the deeper rocks, the gold copper rocks, come to surface in the central part of the district, whereas in the northeast part of the district, where you get shallower rocks, you get the silver lead zinc veins there. Lots of exploration potential in this district, and that's what I'll be talking about for the next bit here. It's a huge property, over 200 square kilometers, as Fred said, and I just divided into very simplistically into areas 1, 2, 3, 4. Area 1 is all the veins, and all those red lines on there, those are just some of the veins that we've mapped in the district. There's hundreds of these veins, and as Fred said, over 5,000 workings that we capture our GIS database. I've never seen so many holes in the ground on a property anywhere. Number 1 area is everything that's within close trucking distance of our Guadalupe production plant at the north end, and I'll talk a bit about some of those prospects. Number 2 is an area of early stage exploration, and you can see there's no red lines in that area, or very few of them. Once we're finished exploring there, that whole number 2 area will fill up with red lines, just like the rest of the map. We just haven't done a lot of work there, but certainly a lot of good potential there. Number 3 is prospects that are close trucking distance to the Kapire plant in the south end of the plant and south end of the property. And then number 4 is the Valle de Oro, the gold copper area in the center, and that material can be trucked either north or south to number 1 or number 3 plants. And just for context, if you drive from number 1 to number 3, that's about a 40-minute drive in a pickup truck, and that's what and much rather longer in a mineral hauling truck, and that's why we chose to build another plant in the south end, just to save on hauling distance. So I'll go through these areas 1, 2, 3, 4 and show you some examples. I'll start off area 1 with our newest mine, the Benteager Open Pit. And you can see it there, and there's a pickup truck on the left side of that photograph, just for scale. So it's a relatively small open pit. We haven't even drilled this thing yet. There was a small open pit from a previous producer here. Our team went in there, did some sampling of the open pit. The grades were very good. And we just sent the big excavator up the road and started mining. And and we can put things into production very quickly because we already have the processing plant, we already have the miners, we already have all the equipment to mine. So this was put very quickly into production last September, and you can see that, and so far we haven't even used any explosives here. As we get deeper, we'll have to use explosives, but on the surface here, that big excavator has just been tearing up the mineral and shipping it off to the plant. In the first quarter, we averaged 191 grams per ton silver. That's just incredible grade for an open pit. And the widths are 14 to 22 meters. And it currently accounts for 18% of our current production, and that's growing. As I said, we haven't done any drilling here yet. Our exploration teams have been drilling trenches along strike, and they're defining the zone further to the north. And we're going to be drilling here before too long and drill underneath this open pit and drill underneath the trenches that we've been digging to the north to see just how big this zone can be. The next slide is, again, in Area 1. This is our San Ramon Mine. And this is an example of an underground mine we have. This is a long section of the vein. The orange parts are the parts we've already mined out. The red blocks are the areas with drill holes, and that's where there's additional tons for us to mine. And these underground mines, typical of so much of Mexico, you never have a whole lot of tons ahead of you mining, but you just keep drilling and mining. We've been mining here since 2008, and it's never been a whole lot of tons ahead of us, but you just keep drilling and mining, and the grades here are very good. You can see in the second bullet there some of the more recent results. There's 4.9 meters at 345 grams, 2 meters at 600 grams. Still very good values coming out of here, and so we'll be mining here obviously for a while longer. Next slide, still in Area 1. Looking at the map, you can see at the top end here, there's the Guadalupe plant, and the Guadalupe mine is up at the north end, and that's produced over 10 million ounces silver since 1972, and a whole lot more than that since its first recorded production in 1529. This mine's almost 500 years old. It's one of the oldest mines in the Americas, and we're still getting good drill results. There's 2.6 meters of over 1,000 grams per ton silver, 8 meters of 300 grams. That mine has over 80 kilometers of underground workings in it. Just a great old mine. It's right beside a processing plant, so the transportation costs are negligible. A few kilometers to the south is another big old mine called Alacran, and this is an exploration target. We're not mining here. This old mine is full of water right now, but you can see here that the main chute here is over 1,000 meters long. That long section turned on its side is those colors are mining from the 1920s, the different parts they mined in the 1920s, and it was exceptionally high grade, thousands of grams silver, and this zone actually had multiple grams of gold in the mining back then. It shut down in the 1930s with the Depression. So the exploration program here is really very simple. Get a drill in here and drill underneath the old workings, and see what the old timers left us down below. But you can see that's a big vein, over 1,000 meters long. Here's Area 1 again, just an example. You can see in the northwest part of the map, that's our Guadalupe processing plant there, and what we're looking at here are veins that are very close to the processing plant. And these are things that that once drilled, can be quickly put into production, assuming results are good, and can generate profits very quickly. And you can see this San Felipe prospect. There's one hole in the second bullet there, 800 grams over 3 meters. So there's some very high. San Felipe will probably never be a big mine, but for a few years, assuming that we continue to get good drill results from it, it can feed some very good grade into the mill. So we have small targets and we have big targets on the property. These smaller targets close to the mill can be put into production very quickly. Area 2, this is the southeast area where we're doing still early stage exploration, but we see the same thing. You can see the photographs there. There's old processing plants, there's old mines in that area, there's beautiful looking veins. And we're just started working in that area. And also just to the southeast of us is the Tasco camp, and the Tasco is probably the most famous silver mine in Mexico. It's actually it's the only mine in Mexico that's older than ours, the Cualpan district, and started production in 1522. Again, almost 500 years. And that belongs to a major company, Grupo Mexico. lots of very good exploration potential here in the southeast in Area 2. Area 3, you can see on the little map there, it's down in the south end of the property, and this is where our Kapire Open Pit and plant are. In the photograph on the bottom right-hand side, you can see the open pit. We started mining there, and then when the price of silver dropped in 2017, we shut it down after mining just 30,000 tons. We do have 43-101 resources, 4.5 million ounces silver at 79 grams per ton, plus some lead and zinc, which is a pretty good grade for an open pit, especially with such a low strip ratio. You can see in the photograph the 200 ton per day plant. That plant can be quite readily expanded to 400 or 500 tons per day, and the pad that we built it on can accommodate a 1,000 ton per day plant if we wanted to go that route. We also ran a big power line in here that can support a big plant, and that valley just beyond the plant in the picture, it's a huge valley that can take decades of tailings waste from the plant. So this is all set up to be a much bigger operation in the future. We shut it down in 2017 when the price of silver dropped to that $15, $16, $17 level. With today's price of silver, this is looking a whole lot sexier, and we'll look at putting this back into production and expanding it. Next slide. These are the 43-101 resources at Kapire, and you can see the base case cutoff is US $70 per ton, 79 grams per silver, 79 grams per ton silver, about 4.5 million ounces of silver contained in the open pit, and we've got drill holes going beyond the open pit that define more material there that hasn't been classified as resources yet. And you can see there's lead zinc in this system as well. Next one. Oh, hello. And then here we've also done some metallurgical testing on Kapire and what's called dense media separation. And the second bullet, a dense media system, which you find in quite a number of mines around the world. Before it even the rocks even go into the processing plant, on a bench scale test, it appears that we can remove 25% of the waste rock and still retain 99% of the silver, which is a really good result for a bench scale test. We're next going to do a commercial scale test, and if that works, that'll certainly help the economics of the Kapire project further. Area 4, which is the Valle de Oro, the gold copper area in the middle. Here's one example of a vein. The red parts in this long section here are the gold copper zones. You can see that there's some silver, lead, zinc, and blue at the upper left side, and that we've mined that out. And then on the right-hand side, we've also gone in there and took a 10,000 ton sample of this copper gold material, and the metallurgy came back pretty good. So this vein already has mine workings into it, and when we need to, we can come in here and fairly quickly start mining once we have a processing set up to take copper gold. And there's some exploration potential in the center here. So that's a very nice vein. Again, in Area 4, this is the central part of the property. You see the big pink blob in the middle of this map, and that is a magnetic anomaly, and that is a buried igneous intrusive. That's probably a big granite down there, and that was probably the heat source for all the mineralization in the district. And so near this big pink blob is where you get the copper gold materials. As you get further away and the solutions cool down is where you get the silver, lead, zinc. So you have some labels here: Chapanel, El Canelo. These are high-grade gold copper veins. In the south is something called Manto America. That's a bit of a different animal. That's more of an open pit type gold target. And let's just have a look at that next slide. There it is there. That ellipse you see there, that's about a square kilometer. And what you see plotted there are a whole bunch of soil anomalies that have good grade gold in them. We've also, in the second bullet, you can see where the rock comes to surface, there's 33 samples that have run over 2 grams per ton gold. The highest number in that ellipse came back 19 grams per ton gold over 1.2 meters. So there's a lot of gold in this big ellipse, and the plan is to come in here and just grid drill it with a reverse circulation drill and see if we have ourselves a big open pit mine on gold rather than silver in this case. On the left side of this plot, you'll see something called Lamora. And Lamora looks like it's we don't have a whole lot of samples there yet, but it looks like it's shaping up to be another similar target to Manto America. So we may actually have 2 of these potential open pit gold systems here. So that's another big exploration target that we'll be looking at in the near future. Area 4 again, the Chapinel vein. This is the one Fred mentioned earlier, and you can see these are narrow veins, but very good grade that run in 5, 8, 18, and even 197 gram per ton gold sample. Very good silver values with it as well. And you can see on the map there, the red specks are where we've taken samples from Chapinel so far. In this map at the very top, you can see that's the Benteager mine that we have, and our prospectors are now exploring that whole area in between the two, and they're finding a lot more veins and anomalies in that area. So once they're done here, you'll see this entire map will fill up with red dots, and I'm sure a lot of very good values. So it's a very interesting exploration area, and it's not that far from one of our producing mines. Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Fred and Jerry.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the focus we want to make is that we still have a very large property to explore, and that is, you can see from the discussion, areas like number 2 virtually have had no footprints from our crew on them yet. The other side that we want to do is we want to push forward on the production levels, increase our throughput at the Guadalupe mill, and restart Kapire to bring our production levels up way past what we were doing in the past when we were at 900 and very nearly 1 million ounces, to become a 1 million ounce plus producer. And that includes exploring some of the very large potential targets, Alacran, which is the historic mine south of Guadalupe, Manto America, which is the potential of being a large open pit, high good grade gold mine, and then further pursue Villa de Oro, because with the large intrusive in the bottom of that valley and the radiating out from it, the number of veins as George described, there's an incredible opportunity here to not just be a silver producer, but to be a significant gold producer, and that we're going to chase as well. We've got a pretty full plate in front of us, and it's a plate that requires some significant expenditures on our part. And going forward, although a good portion of our work has been conducted on a sort of global basis, now we have to focus on a number of those targets we've identified. Jerry.
Thank you, Fred. So again, great summary for both Fred and George. Again, just to recap why Impact Silver, we are the pure play silver producer with 90% plus silver exposure, no equivalents in terms of production. We don't report gold, base metal, lead, zinc in terms of our revenue. So very scalable. As silver goes up, we go up incrementals. Like you see in that chart earlier, usually in a ratio of 5 to 6 to 1. Near-term production, rather than just saying we have ounces in the ground and point to a hole in the ground, we produce every month, right? We have a production and a sales agreement with Samsung from Korea, one of the biggest electronics players in the world, very notable player, and we have a district-wide opportunity in over 200 kilometers, as Fred and George outlined. No shortage of targets, both high-grade silver and high-grade gold, and we've survived the last 7-8 years of downturn through cash flow and consistent operational revenue. The next few pages, you can see we are very well pegged against our peers, rather than multi-million ounces per year. We're actually getting only 70-80 million in market cap per million ounce produced. So we have a lot of re-rating to do as we prove up potential growth and obviously additional high-grade targets that we're hitting and ability to fast track production. Next page on. Again, this is kind of summarized earlier in terms of our exploration process from development, research, field work. A lot of the first 3 boxes here have been done. We're waiting on obviously more capital for drilling. Obviously, with lower silver prices last few years, we haven't had that really room in terms of operational cash flow and free cash flow to afford additional greenfield drilling. We hope this financing will change that, and we're quite excited. Next page. Again, George has gone over a lot of this. Maybe at this point, it's best to open up for a Q&A period so we can go over a lot of this in detail.
All right. Hey, thanks, Jerry, Fred, and George. Thanks very much for the summary. We do have a couple of questions from the audience. I guess there's 2 main themes here, gentlemen. The first one is, can you give us a better breakdown on the use of proceeds of the recent financing? Where will those monies be directed towards at the property?
Well, let me start that one. Obviously, we have an exploration property which in size or order of magnitude is one of the largest in Mexico. We are going to, and we've identified a number of targets, and now we have to take those targets and test them with drilling. So we're going to be very active with drilling over the next 1.5 to 2 years. 2, we're going to be using some of those proceeds to scale up our production at the Guadalupe plant. 3, we're going to be using about $3 million plus, and this can only be an estimate at this point in time, to look at the metallurgical enhancements at Kapire to improve our margins on the Kapire, to do a further exploration at the Kapire to expand the current target, because our objective is, yes, we'll put it back into production, and the production level can either be doing nothing but just producing at 200 tons a day, upscaling the size of production, as George mentioned, to 500 tons a day, putting a DMS plant in front of that to improve our margins. So we have a number of levels of activity at the Kapire plant, and those will be subject to metallurgical testing and drilling that we're going to be doing there as well. And then we're going to look at some of these large-scale targets, and these are real company makers. These are the things that will make you a multi-million ounce producer. And that's the Alacran, that's Manto America, and we actually have a list of others that we haven't mentioned yet. We've got over 5,000 old workings on this property, and we're simply summarizing what we see immediately as sort of the top 4 or 5 that we'd be chasing. Certainly, with success, we're going to continue on expanding on those down that list, and any one of those would probably make a junior a $5 or $10 million market cap. Any one of those targets that we have right now. Sure.
Thanks, Fred. A lot of questions about Kapire and the restart of Kapire. Can you give us a sense of how long it will take you to do the metallurgical work and the associated engineering to be able to determine how you're going to restart Kapire?
Yeah, we're going to be doing 2 things at the same time, I think. The strategy will be, we'll be doing some more drilling at Kapire to see if we can expand that resource. There's another couple of targets in the immediate area. And while we're doing that, we'll be going ahead with the batch testing of the DMS. So we'll be looking at, okay, what's the potential size here that we could be mining? And coincidentally, we're going to be doing the metallurgical work. The metallurgical work was actually started late last year. unfortunately, the work that was being conducted was being done at one of the universities in Mexico, and COVID-19 shut that down. So we've actually had to go out and get rebid it with another commercial group, not through the university. They're working on it right now, and we should have the initial testing that'll tell us on a larger basis what our production, what our recoveries could be. And George mentioned, you've got a 25% reduction of waste material before you process it in the plant. The other side is the lower grade material. There's a very significant increase in reduction. So it takes lower grade material that maybe wasn't even ore, and it may become ore if this VMS works. So, or DMS works. So there are things that are going to fluctuate. If we're delayed in putting it into production, it's only because the size is getting bigger. But alternatively, it'd only be about a 3 or 4 month period to put it into production at 200 tons a day right now. So scaling up, yes, it'll take longer. The good news is it's because something's a lot bigger. But our intention is to start working at going to a production level decision, reproduction, if you will, decision in the immediate future.
Okay, no, thanks. And then at Guadalupe, you've talked about the capacity or the potential to increase the capacity of the mill there. Can you give us a sense of what that involves and what kind of capital, as well as what kind of timing it will take?
Yeah, well, in Guadalupe, we have a capacity to produce at 535 tons a day right now. We're producing about 100 tons a day lower than that. And we can scale it up. Mostly what this is it's a flotation circuit. We've got the crushing circuit that can handle it. We've got 3 ball mills that can handle it. Most of it's related to the flotation circuit. Flotation is time consuming to set it up, but quite frankly, it's not an expensive expenditure. So to get it up to say over 600 tons a day, you're talking less than $500,000.
Okay, no, that's good to know, and I'm sure everybody is encouraged by that. George, you've got so many targets to evaluate on this property. You've got exploration, greenfield exploration, near mine exploration. You've got, how do you prioritize? And I guess another question that's come through from the audience is, can you give us a sense of what the use of proceeds will be from sort of a percentage basis on greenfield versus brownfield versus, the sources of the uses of proceeds?
Yeah. Okay, well, first of all, let's say that greenfields exploration is really quite cheap, even if you do a lot of it, because it's basically geologists are out in the field taking samples. It's the drilling that's expensive. So most of the use of proceeds will go into drilling, even if you're doing a lot of greenfields exploration. As far as which targets do you hit, I think it's both. You hit some of the near-term higher grade targets that are close to the mill. You drill those for near-term production. But the ones I get really excited about are the big targets. The big vein at Alacran, the potential big open pit in Manto America. And those are the things I really get excited about drilling, because that's if you're successful at one or more of those, that's a real game changer.
What is your average cost to drill a meter of core, George?
It's about US $180 per meter.
Pretty decent cost base, isn't it?
Yeah. Mexico is a pretty cheap place to work overall, because it does have so much mining infrastructure.
And with the drilling that you're going to do at Beta Negra, do you have is the goal to get it to resource stage as quickly as possible? What are the objectives there?
If it turns out to be really big, we probably will do a resource on it. If it's not so big, we'll probably just keep drilling and mining it as we do at some of our other mines. So it's But if it does turn out to be really big, we probably will do a resource on it, because we'd need that for planning of a bigger open pit, as we did at Kapire.
Say, for example, Beta Negra got to be of size that it's starting to, move to the upper range of what you can process at Guadalupe. Is there the potential to use the Kapire mill to process some of that material, or is it really just strictly base metal mineralization?
No, I mean, these mills can be converted. Kapire has, in the past, it produced the silver, lead, zinc from the Kapire Open Pit, and then I said we took a 10,000 ton gold copper bulk sample out of Carlos Pacheco, and we converted the Kapire mill to process that bulk sample. So these plants are convertible. It's simply too far to truck from Benteager to down to Kapire. That'd be well over an hour in a pickup truck, and much longer than that with a haul truck. So that Kapire material, if it currently is being shipped to the Guadalupe plant. We've also talked about we can't expand the Guadalupe plant where it is, but there is a site a few 8 kilometers west of Guadalupe where there is a site for a really big plant to be built. And so we have that option too, is to build a bigger plant west of the Guadalupe plant if Benteager were to become really big.
If you were going to rank your targets in order of priority, what would be those? What would be that priority list?
For myself, I like the go big exploration approach. So I would drill Alacran and Manto America first.
Fred, how about you? Where's your priority list lie?
Well, it's somewhere between. We have a couple of the targets that I still think are interesting, even on they're not quite the scale of Manto America or Alacran. And I would chase those because they simply are high grade. And I see nothing wrong with generating profits. But I agree with George. If we really want to put some sort of arrows in the quiver, those two are very important. And Manto America is one that we can actually proceed with relatively quickly. In fact, we're making plans right now because of its location, we're actually trying to get a RC rig that's fairly mobile because it's where it is. And it's certainly going to be one we're going to prioritize getting at almost immediately. We'll also be prioritizing the Kapire because, as I said, I think we can expand the size of Kapire, and seeing how it's already got certain size, that's attractive. And I know what George wants with the Alacran, and he's right. It's a game changer when you look at those grades. I think Alacran is actually not only to depth but along strike. There's some potential as well, and we're deliberately putting together a budget. It's deeper drilling, that's fine, and it's going to take longer to put it into production because you've got water, you've got a rebuild of some of the infrastructure. But it's certainly an exciting target, and it's one that invariably I've got to spend some serious coin on. As for the others, we're getting golds in veins, and although the veins may be fairly tight, it's amazing how they sometimes open up. Carlos Pacheco did that for us, but overall size, it wasn't huge. And that's an area I'd like to test as well, because there's that area that George indicated, that whole area sort of in the northwest, where it's not just Carlos Pacheco, it's not just Chapman Yell. A number of these things are demonstrating good grade golds. And anecdotally, a lot of the gold and a lot of the silver that went to Mexico City before the conquistadors ever got here was from this district.
Excellent. So it does sound like Alacran and Manto America drilling will be in the cards for 2020. Is that safe to say?
2020 will be at very near the end for Alacran, just because those are deep holes. You don't want to screw them up when you drill them. Manto America, basically, I'm hoping in the next 2 months to start working on it.
Sounds good, gentlemen. This has been a great update, and thank you very much for your time and the opportunity to get a better understanding of what is in the cards for Impact Silver over the next 12 to 18 months.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
And thank you very much, everybody, for attending. You will be able to find the next Red Cloud webinar on our website, and we look forward to the next series of webinars and your participation in them. Thank you very much.